Hello. In this video we're going to be taking a look at least common multiple. If you watch the GCF video, we're going to utilize a similar strategy with that ladder or upside down birthday cake, whatever you want to call it, for helping us find the ultimate answer here, in this case LCM. So let's take a look at an example. We're going to find the least common multiple of 20, 32, and 40. Okay, and I'm going to get my ladder technique set up. I always like to go over the other possibilities, just like with the GCF video. The other possibility here would be listing multiples now of each number here. We're looking at 3 numbers, so LCM is going to be a little tricky if we're talking about a list. We're going to have to make 3 separate lists. This can go on for quite a while. It could take a good amount of time, but that is a strategy that you could use. And obviously with least common multiple, we're trying to find the smallest number that all 3 of these numbers go into, or that they're a factor of, the smallest. That's the least in LCM. So we're going to do the same thing as we would with GCF. There's going to be a slight variation. And also new here, the fact that there's 3 numbers. There is a rule with this. This is something we would not want to do. So I'm going to erase in a second. We wouldn't want to do something like this. Okay? 20 is a factor of obviously 20 and 40 on the end. But we're kind of ignoring the 32 there. You do have to factor out any common factors for all 3 numbers if something exists, which obviously there is something here. 2 right off the bat we can see is clearly a factor of all 3. Once you settle all those for all 3, then you can look at 2 at a time. But you can't just kind of jump into just factoring 2 numbers as your kind of first or second move. You want to make sure you satisfy all 3, pull out those numbers that satisfy all 3 numbers first. So let's do that. So I'm going to pull out a 2. Once again, I'm making sure that all 3 numbers are satisfied before I start branching out into pairs. So 10, 16, and 20. I could see I could do another 2 here. So now I have 5. Oops, that should be 20. So now I have 5, 8, and 10. And at this point, this is very important, at this point, I can no longer pull out a factor that will satisfy all 3. So now, and only now, I can move on to my, hey, let me just look at 2 at a time. Okay, now and only now can I do this. I could not do this in the first step. And if you're curious what would happen if we did do that in the last step, we would get a common multiple. So we're not going to be totally wrong. It's just not going to be the least common of them, least common multiple, I should say. So I'm going to pull out a 5. Similarly, I could have pulled out a 2 for the 8 and 10, but I was looking at the 5 and the 10. And that's going to leave me with a 1. We're kind of ignoring the 8, so he just kind of chills there. And the 10, we did pull out a 5. That's a 2. Now I could do one more move here. I could pull out a 2. So I'm ignoring the 1. And now I have nothing else to do. 1, 4, and 1 are all relatively prime with each other. So I'm done. At least done with our ladder, I should say. Now, if we were doing GCF, we would just be looking at the green here, the 2, 2, 5, and the 2. But with LCM, it's also kind of cool. I indented mine a little bit, so it's a little slanted. But we're really looking at this L shape. Okay? And now, just like with GCF, the numbers that make up this L shape, we're going to be multiplying together. So also note the bottom row is taken into consideration here. Obviously, the 1s aren't going to affect anything, so I'm just going to write times 4. If you like to add times 1 and times 1, go right ahead, but it's not going to change your answer. So multiplying these out, 2 times 2 is 4. I got 20. 40 times 4 gives you my grand total. My LCM for these 3 numbers should be 160. Okay, so some important notes with LCM. We can use the ladder technique, pull out GCFs, pull out common factors, CFs I should say, They do have to satisfy all three before you start moving into just isolating pairs or ignoring one of them. Very important that you hit all three first. And also make sure you take your bottom row into consideration. That has to be multiplied. Make that L shape when you're multiplying out. Thank you guys for watching. This was LCM.